While everybody's focused on the federal level and the new administration and the policies that are coming down, there is a lot going on at the state level. And the state level is where citizens have a much greater voice and a much greater ability to influence things. Today, we have a very special guest, State Senator Theresa Manzella. She is out of Montana, and she is a fighter. She is a constitutional conservative, and she is one of the conservative rock stars in Montana. Unfortunately, she's been smeared by some people who want a constitutional convention, so we're going to ask her about that, and also some of what's going on in Montana. Some really important developments there. Senator, thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure, Alex. Thanks for having me. Great to be
It's
with you. I'm
great to
glad
have
we were able to do this.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much, Teresa. So just recently, the ConCon Battle showed up in Montana again, and you stood firm and against the Constitutional Convention, against the Article 5 effort to amend our Constitution to supposedly make it better. And they came after you, something fierce. And they started calling people in your districts. Tell us a little bit about how the battle went down and what the other side did.
Yeah, it was pretty unpleasant there for a little while. I mean, that's the part I find so offensive about this particular issue is that it's dividing conservatives, and sadly, they seem to give conservatives just a small amount of information, enough to make them get fired up. Of course, we're all incredibly frustrated over the federal overreach of our government. We all want to rein it in. It's just a difference of opinion and methodology and how we go about doing that. And so their tactic has become, basically just sicken the people after you and turning on robocalls and they edited my quotes and took things out of context and then sent out mass emails to their base and then those people in turn started calling and emailing me. Just there was a period of time where my phone didn't quit ringing for a couple hours. And some people are reasonable, but sadly many of them are just really aggressive and hateful, and that's sad. That's really sad. I feel betrayed by the people that promote the Convention of States because, I'm all about having a fair debate, fair, honest, open debate on the subject. But to take things out of context like they did is really unfair, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. And you really don't need to defend your conservative bona fides. If you look at your track record, your voting record, and everybody in Montana knows it. The Montana Shooting Sports Association, perfect score. NRA, perfect score. Montana Family Foundation, perfect score. United Property Owners, perfect score. And yet somehow they're coming after you as if you were not a proper conservative. Tell us a little bit about the debate and how it went down, Senator. I know it failed in Montana this time around, and one of the things that was so interesting about the last time this came up in the state of Montana was that Representative Cheetah, who I just spoke with yesterday and earlier and the day before, he was the one who introduced it, and then he stood up and he said, "Hey guys, you got to vote against this. I made a mistake." It was incredible to see his integrity and his willingness to admit that he had made a mistake. But tell us a little bit about the debate. Why are you concerned about this push for a constitutional convention?
Yeah, I served on the Judiciary Committee in the House whenever Representative Cheetah brought that before us, and I agree with you. He is a man of integrity, and I appreciate the fact that he recognized that he was wrong or that he had been deceived on that. And so this time it was brought by another stalwart conservative, Senator Tom McGilvery. He's a very well-respected senator in the area. He was previously in a position of leadership some years back. And I respect the man tremendously, but we just have different views on this subject. And of course, he learned early on that I was a proponent of the Convention of States, so I didn't get invited when they come into town and they wine and dine all the senators and take them out and expose them to their 40-minute PowerPoint presentation about how great the Convention of States is going to be and how they're going to be able to control it and the rules that they've just basically made up. It appears to me that they just are kind of making the rules up as they go along. And so by the time it got to the committee for the hearing, he had already developed a lot of support for the issue. And of course, there was a lot of proponents there, a lot of citizens in the audience that were there to speak in favor of the Convention of States. And then there were opponents that were online on Zoom, zooming in from, places near and far. And it's hard, that the Zoom provides a aspect of convenience for people, but it also is challenging. It's hard to be as effective when you're speaking, and you can't even, there's not a video component to it. So it's just your voice coming across, and sometimes you sound like you're, very far away. Sometimes you're very loud and harsh, and so anyway, we managed to kill it in the committee, and then of course they blasted it out of committee. They waited until they had enough support, and they blasted it out of committee, and that was pretty hard on me. I felt pretty disrespected because the work is done in the committee, and we gave it a thorough hearing, and we voted it down, and in my opinion, it should have stayed down. But that is a process. The blast process is a legitimate process that's available to us, a legislator, to use. So he did blast it out onto the floor, and I was up all night preparing for that debate on the floor, and managed I think we had one vote. I believe it was voted down on the floor 26 to 24, as I recall.
Wow.
So that was pretty close. Too
Yep.
close for comfort.
Yeah, no kidding. And it is a really hot issue. And, it's been my experience as well that really well-meaning people, real conservatives who do think like us on a lot of issues, they have been brought into this Convention of States movement. And unfortunately, I think the risk is just so huge that once they open it up, we don't know where that would go. And in the current political environment, it just seems like a very dangerous time, as the late Supreme Court Justice Scalia said, to be tinkering with the Constitution. So if amending or fixing or rewriting the Constitution is not the answer to restraining the federal government, a lot of people are wondering, well, and this is what the Convention of States people say, well, then what is the answer? And we see the Biden administration going wild with the executive orders. We're going to shut down energy extraction on federal lands. We're going to shut down pipelines. We're going to do this, that, and the other. A lot of states, Oklahoma comes to mind. They're really at the forefront of this. Are saying, well, under the 10th Amendment, you can't shut down our oil production. You can't shut down our energy. Is there anything going on in Montana on the nullification front, on efforts to keep the federal government in check? And should there be anything going on?
Absolutely. There needs to be a lot of things going on. For one thing, the state legislators need to recognize their own power and jurisdiction, and we need to push the federal government back into their lane of jurisdiction and stay out of our business. But unfortunately, in Montana, 43 cents of every dollar comes from the federal government. So the biggest thing I see is that we need to quit taking the money from the federal government. And we're blessed in Montana that we could be completely independent if we so choose. We're rich in natural resources and timber and oil and gas and farmland and cattle production. We're blessed, and we have only just over 1 million people in our state, so we could be completely independent if we so choose. Concerning the Keystone Pipeline, that is the number one priority of our Attorney General. He's going to be fighting that on our behalf, and we're blessed to have a good, strong, conservative Attorney General in Austin Knudsen. And then we're bringing policies, putting policies in place to prevent overreach on gun confiscation and trying to protect our Second Amendment. And then to Tom McGilvery's credit, he brought a bill recently to address federal overreach by presidential executive orders. And he's attempting to put the attorney general in a position of authority over presidential executive orders. So we agree on a number of things, just simply not the Convention of States.
Wow, fascinating. That's wonderful. And I've
Yeah.
I've noticed a whole lot of states are now moving in that direction. Maybe there's kind of a constitutional awakening going on here. I know it happened a lot during the Obama years too. I want to talk about the Republican Party now because you have witnessed this, and there seems to be this divide, and it's becoming increasingly obvious, I think, to the grassroots, and it really came to the forefront in the battle that Trump was waging against some establishment forces. But and you talk about it a little bit on your campaign website. This move of some factions within the Republican Party to move more in a progressive direction, if you will, the kind of establishment wing of the party, the status quo wing, and then the conservative wing that stands for the Constitution and God and country and our God-given rights, things like that. What does the battle look like in Montana right now? Is this battle raging in Montana like it is in other places? I just yesterday was digging into the vote, and I'll ask you about it in a moment, in the House, where actually they had one vote to the measure to regulate social media and fine social media for censorship lost by one vote. And some of the lawmakers and even some of the public service commissioners that I talked to said that these were establishment Republicans and liberal Republicans. What's the situation with the Republican Party in Montana? Is there this divide, and what's going on there?
Absolutely. Yeah. This last election cycle, that was my focus, was to simply expose the truth about what's going on in the Republican Party and try to get the conservative citizens motivated and engaged and activated, and it was a hard fought battle, but it paid off for me. I mean, the truth resonates with people, and I ran in a Senate district that my opponent, who is one of those people you mentioned, a progressive Republican. She didn't start out that way, but she certainly um, progressed into being one. And she had ran and won 4 times previously in that district, and I had never ran in that district and had no intention of running against her. Would never have ran against her had she remained conservative, but she didn't. So I said, well, discussed it with my conservative colleagues, and they said, you're the only one that has a chance to beat her. Her name recognition is too strong, and I said, okay, I'll do it. After a lot of prayer, I'll do it. And I just kind of turned it over to the Lord and said, if this is where you want me to be, then you'll have to help me sort this out. And all I did was simply tell the truth and expose voting records. And people in Ravalli County are quite astute. They expect us to honor our oath of office, and when we say we're a Christian constitutional conservative Republican, that's what they expect. And so often, it's very easy to present the voting records and show where you've gone astray.
Yeah, that is such an important thing right there.
And we had. I'm sorry, I focused on that election cycle, but anyway, so the result was a great big red wave in Montana. And we were able to grow our number from 38 conservatives to now they've got like at least 45 in the House. And so, but it's not time to let up. We have to continue exposing because they continue to be a problem for us, And so we got to fight.
Yeah, that's excellent news. I'm glad to hear that, and I think there's something to be learned by conservatives in other states too. You got to work, but it can be done. I want to ask you about a bill that just died in the House on March 2nd, and it was such a fascinating bill that I decided to dig into it. It was an effort to regulate the social media companies, not in terms of their operations, but basically it would have given the Public Service Commission the authority to make rulings when a social media company discriminates against people for their political views or for their religious views. We've seen a lot of these big tech companies, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, banning people who are Christian or people who disagree with, LGBT, whatever it is. And their discrimination and the bigotry has really gotten intense. And so actually the bill was introduced by Representative Cheetah. and strongly supported by some of the public service commissioners, went down by 1 vote. But, what are your thoughts? Is there something that states can do to rein in the social media companies and the tech oligarchs, if you will, that are trying to trample on free speech? I mean, they took down the president of the United States. Can the little state of Montana take on these giants?
Yeah, good, very good point. We're blessed with a good public service commission, and if those people think that they can do it, then I'm all for it. And if I can find a bill title that will work, then we can reintroduce that bill in the Senate and take another run at it. And maybe with your help, and if we could get some media on it, um, and get the citizens involved, that's what it takes. It requires a tremendous amount of outcry by the citizens to say, we are watching you. This is something that we want, and it's your responsibility to pass it, or we will primary you and vote you out next election cycle. And so that was a general bill, and of course we've missed the general bill deadline now. We're now at the halfway mark. So to bring that bill back, we would have to somehow make it create revenue, which, as I understand it, according to Commissioner Pinocci, they would have some oversight of the big tech companies, and there would be a revenue component on it. So I think it's entirely possible if we can find another bill title, because those bill titles have to be turned in way in advance. And so that would be the challenge right now, is to try to find another bill title that would work and take another run at it. But I'm certainly willing to do that.
Fascinating. Yeah, that bill, for people out there watching, was HB 573, and it would have fined the social media companies if they didn't comply with orders from the Public Service Commission to stop discriminating against people for their political views or their religious views. It would have fined them massive amounts of money. I think it was 1% of their revenue or some other thing. And actually, one of the architects of the legislation told me it could be hundreds of millions of dollars if they were defiant and didn't stop discriminating against conservatives. And Theresa, I have one more question for you. You kind of touched on this, and it's such an important point. You talked about citizen involvement. So you are a lawmaker. You've now been elected by your constituents. But what is it that regular people can do who aren't in elected office? I mean, what do legislators listen to? What do they respond to? How can citizens be involved at the grassroots level to really push the policymakers in the legislature, in the governor's office, and Congress in a more positive direction?
We need all citizens to get involved at their grassroots level in whatever ways they can. We need conservatives on the school boards because, as you know, the progressives are taking over our education system. You're an expert on that particular subject. We need to fill our central committees with conservatives because if they're not filled with conservatives, then they're sitting ducks to be filled with phony Republicans, moderates, Democrats in disguise, transpartisans, whatever you want to call them. We've all got our share, and so we've got to try to fill those central committees because those are the people that go to the state conventions and actually set up the party platform and make amendments to the party platform. And so yeah, we citizens, and that's the beauty of this situation that we're in right now, Alex, is that what Satan intends for evil, God will turn to good, and we're seeing so many blessings come out of this whole COVID scamdemic, and people are waking up and they're ready to get involved and they're ready to engage, and pain is a phenomenal motivator for that reason, and people they're feeling the pain. So that's a good thing. That's a very, very good thing. I spend a lot of my time staying engaged with the citizens, learning from their experiences, trying to be their voice, trying to guide and direct them. And more and more and more people are willing to engage. And I think that's just a tremendous blessing for us.
Amen. Yeah, that's been our experience here in Florida too. People are just waking up right and left, like, wait, I didn't realize my rights were under threat. Now I can't even go to work. What's going on? So no, it
Yeah.
truly is tremendous what's going on. Senator, thank you so much for what you're doing. Any final words of wisdom before we let you go? Any advice for people maybe in other parts of the country who are watching this, who want to get good people elected to office, who want to move things in a good direction?
Yeah, thank you, Alex. Read your Constitution, study your Constitution, know your rights. Um, take the John Birch Society constitutional class. It's a great one. Hold meetings in your home and learn what your rights actually are. And it's my belief that only when you understand how incredibly genius the founders and framers were when they established our Constitution, only when you understand their original intent can you then recognize how badly our rights have been assaulted, and uh, and that's enough to fire you up and get you involved. So study that Constitution. That's my words of wisdom. The Constitution is the solution.
Amen. Couldn't agree more. Senator, thank you so much for what you're doing. Thank you so much for your time. Folks, that was Senator Theresa Manzella. You can find her at manzellaformontana.com. She is just a superstar in the conservative movement in Montana and increasingly nationally as well. We are thankful for you watching. We pray that you will be blessed by this information and also that you'll help get it out. We're talking about social media. They despise us. They're trying their best to destroy us and silence us and shut us down, just like they're doing with all conservatives. So if you thought this was important, if there was some words of wisdom there that resonated with you, please share this out. Send it to your friends, send it to your family, send it to your local elected officials, your state elected officials, even your congressman, whoever needs to hear this. And thanks again for watching. Go to thenewamerican.com, and God bless you all.